What's up? Do you feel bad when you lie to other people? Do you not like being lied to? Is there ever a good time to lie? Well, today in Luck, we're going to talk about is lying ever justified? This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny. I'm here, buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Yeah, so you came up with this topic today. So, I mean, what was on your mind?
Well, this happened to me today. I was talking
Okay.
with an acquaintance, and he asked something that was none of his business. And so I lied,
The nerve.
and then I
Yeah.
felt bad about it. And yeah, and so I'm going over in my head. I'm like, like number one, he had no right asking that. Well, I guess he had a right asking it, but you know, I didn't want there was something that I didn't want him to know. He asked about
Yeah.
it. He didn't really, it wasn't any of his business, but he asked anyways. And then I lied and I felt bad about it because, I don't know. There's this whole thing
Well,
about integrity. Like they say, oh, you need to have integrity and integrity is the best thing. And
let,
yeah.
let me ask you this, though. When you say, the title is lying ever justified? That was justified though. So the question is like, do you mean justified or do you mean like morally acceptable or like appropriate or like
Why do I feel bad?
okay, that's what we're asking. That's fine. I mean, I this is the funny thing about lying. Like, okay, and we all know everybody lies, right? I mean, like everybody does. And there's like, you might say there's like better times to lie, I guess, or there's appropriate times. Like in that situation,
And
I mean, you
also, and
could have
also, I'm
just
like pretty sure he knows that I was lying too.
probably, if you ask the question, he probably, if he knows you, he probably knew you're not going to tell him. I mean, it's the kind of thing too, where like, would he have listened if you had just said like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that, or like, it's none of your business.
I don't know.
I mean, because
Because,
it's
like I
tough, right?
said,
Because
he's an acquaintance. He's a guy I've met like three, four times.
oh, okay, okay, so he doesn't know you well,
No.
but yeah, okay, okay, yeah, it's tough. It's funny because I feel like that's a good instance of when I think a lot of people lie. Is we often lie when like we don't want to talk about something, but we also don't want to necessarily like make the person feel bad or make it awkward. And I think, I don't know, it, I think that's justified as long as it doesn't come. I think lying's bad when it comes from a bad place, if that makes sense.
Mm. Hmm.
Like you're trying to cheat somebody or you're trying to get something from them. This is more like, it's a private matter. You don't want to discuss it. And,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Hmm.
I don't think that's a big deal.
Okay. But I
But
agree with you there that when it is like deceptive lying to injure somebody else, that's no good. But I don't see how he could be injured from this. It's
well, I
just
think,
like, yeah.
yeah, like a lot of us, we're so used to it now too, because there's so many scams and stuff, right? Where like there's so much stuff literally targeting people, and it's with ill intent, right? The goal is to get something from them for nothing. I think that's really bad lying,
Well,
right?
here's
Or
the
like,
question.
yeah,
Is there a difference? And I know we're going to say, oh yeah, because the intention's different, but really both people are lying. They're not telling the truth. I did not tell the truth today. The people who are scamming old people, they didn't tell the truth too. So
well, okay,
is there a difference between two people not telling the truth, even though the intention was different?
yeah. I think there. I mean, I think you're coming at this from. I think no. I think you're doing what a lot of people do because I see this. I mean, I especially see this a lot of my clients do. Like, you're coming at this from like a perspective of objective morality. It's like very Kantian or Christian, right? Lying is always wrong, and it's never right to
Well,
lie. That belief,
Christianity is
right?
always right, so
Right? I mean, come on. Yeah. So obviously it
if
follows
they say
that.
lying's
Yeah.
always wrong and they're always right, then lying's always wrong.
I don't know. Maybe I'm more realistic, I guess. I always look at it context, right? I think context matters.
Well,
Because
I
like,
like that. Explain it more.
all right, like think of it this way, like there's lots of situations I think we find ourselves in where like your example, right, where it's something personal you don't want to talk about, but you don't know the person that well. They might not know you. And if you're in a conversation, it can be really awkward to be like, dude, I don't want to talk about that, or like that's none of your business. So sometimes it's easier just to lie and then move on. You're not hurting them. You're not doing anything mean. You're just not providing the information that they're
Yeah,
intentionally asking about that you don't want to share.
I thought about the other options in how to respond and not lie. Like one option would have been to tell them the truth, what they were wanted, but what I didn't want them to know, and that's like because then I would have been essentially lying to myself, like breaking my own integrity.
Yeah.
Uh, the other option is to tell them, I don't want to tell you that, or I don't want to
Which,
talk to
yeah,
that about you.
sounds like
Or
an attack on them or something, or
right.
like you
So
don't
like
like them.
that's
Yeah.
kind of aggressive, can be. Uh, I could have just said none of your business. None of your
None of your business.
beeswax,
Get out
man.
of here.
Get
Well,
out of
and
here.
I think this is the hard thing too, because I think there are, even in cases like that, there might be better alternatives, but it's not always clear that there are. And I think it's difficult. Like, even like, I mean, I can think of examples that have happened to me relatively recently where, somebody asked me to do, to help them with something, and like I just don't have time. And, but I also knew they're not going to really necessarily understand. So I just said, something else. Like, just said,
Hmm.
or like I don't want to do something, but I don't want to make them feel bad, like I'm not interested or something. You just say, I'm too busy or something. I
Hmm.
mean, things like that I don't think are a big deal. I think
Yeah.
it's more problematic when we're like doing it out of malice or doing it to try and get something from people or get one over on them, I think is bad. Because I mean, look, dude, everybody lies in regular circumstances. I think they do,
Next thing you're
and if
going to
they,
tell me everybody poops. And I know for a fact that is not true.
I haven't in at least 3 decades. Yeah, but like, I think it's just funny because like we have this mentality that these absolute moral rules, and I think that's like I think it's a bad way to think about morality too, because it puts morality in a box, and I think morality is about learning how to navigate everyday life in the best way you can, which means one, making mistakes, and two, a lot of gray area. Things are not black and white, in the world. They're not. And, one situation it might be okay, and a very similar action in another situation might not be because the circumstance changed. I think that's a big
Mm,
factor. So I think you have to be aware of that. And you also have to ask yourself, why am I lying? Right? Like if you ask yourself that and the answer is like something as simple as like, I don't know this guy that well. It's not his business. But they are an acquaintance. I don't want to ruin the relationship or make them upset or uncomfortable. Well, what's wrong with that, right?
mhm,
But, there's other times where it might be problematic.
mm. There could be another explanation for it. So like when you talk about making mistakes and like navigating life, that's something that I have been dealing with recently is like recognizing that when I was young and impressionable, I made mistakes and they were painful, and I had made up my mind that I'm not going to make mistakes anymore. And it got this like perfectionist mentality where I'm just going to get
Yeah.
everything right. And it doesn't serve me because there's no way to do that in life. But
No.
like things like this, they kind of ruffle my feathers is because it's touching that nerve where it's like you made another mistake. You didn't get it perfect the first time or whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, but and I think this is the problem too, because when you have that like when you're working from that rigid definition of like right and wrong, you don't leave yourself any room either. And I think it is worse for you over time because then you're going to be like mad at yourself and you're going to get upset about things that really like don't matter or you didn't do anything wrong or you know what I mean? And I think that's not a good way to be either. Because also
Mhm.
if you're aware of it and you realize why you're lying, I think that there's also some virtue in that and integrity in that. Like if like I just don't want this guy to have the information, but I also care about his feelings. And I don't want to hurt his feelings. Okay, so there's some integrity in that, I think. You're being honest with yourself. You're being truthful to what your values are, and you're also not wanting to hurt somebody else's feelings, which is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
And I think this is our problem with like I think most of our conceptions of like right and wrong are very skewed because I think the absolutism is terrible for us.
That is a good point because I remember, like now that you mention it, I remember growing up, like the whole thing is like, don't tell lies, white lies, don't tell lies. And it wasn't like learn how to lie skillfully or something like, or like learn how to
Yeah.
lie uh effectively or what's good for in the best interest of everybody. Like learn how to lie properly.
Meanwhile, your parents and teachers are telling you that, and they're lying to you all the
I know.
time.
They're like, don't lie. Oh, someone's on the phone for you. Tell them I'm not here.
Yeah, Santa Claus is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, and like, but that's another example, right? Like, imagination, right? Letting kids have that time of that enjoyment. There's nothing wrong with that, necessarily, but you are also lying to them. So like if you see Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and stuff is fine, well, you also have no problem with lying. So
Well,
you should
you
reassess
just
that.
broke the hearts of every child listening to this
I
podcast.
know, right?
They'd
I'm
be
not
like,
worried about that. It's
"What?
okay.
What?"
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found it really weird though, because I think we do have this like we get these things stuck in our heads and it affects us and affects how we evaluate our actions our whole lives without ever really thinking about the starting point, if that makes sense. Like, like, and I think that is one of the problems. Like, we should reflect more on like on our actions, why we're doing them, and then kind of reflect on like what does that mean,
Hmm.
in context.
And also, we're kind of lying to ourselves all the time. Like I've heard it said where we do stuff and then we come up with reasons for it afterwards.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so like you do stuff and then you have to essentially lie to yourself. If yeah.
Dude, people do that all the time too. College is
Mhm.
a great example where kids like forget to do their assignments, all of a sudden they're sick,
Yeah.
or all of a sudden, some emergency happens. I mean, we all do it.
Hmm.
And I think it's like it's a way to save face and not take on that responsibility, I guess, in a sense. But and that's the other thing too, right? I think like lying to get out of things like that can be dangerous because then you're not doing the work, you're not kind of learning how to kind of like motivate yourself and all that. And so that could be dangerous long term, but like, getting out of a sticky situation is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. Right. But you know what the good thing that came out of it was? So
What's that?
today I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And because we talk about this stuff on a regular basis, I recognized that I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Nice.
And so when things were just going like whatever today, I was just like, hey, that's okay. It's just one of those days.
Yeah, I think I've been getting better at that too, and I like that because it is nice when you realize it early and you're like, oh, so things are just going to be terrible this morning,
Yeah,
but I
I
know
don't
why
need to fight it all
now.
day.
Yeah,
All
and get
right.
mad at myself. Yeah, it is funny.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, I guess anything else you want to add about that?
Mm-mm.
No? All right, so there you have it. Is lying ever justified? If you like the episode, check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Even leave a review. That would be awesome. We'll be back later this week with another full-length episode. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. Until then, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.